This is Sue. Sue is the most complete adult T-Rex fossil to be discovered to date, and one of the largest as well. And shockingly, she might not even be a T-Rex. In fact, the Tyrannosaurus rex might not even exist as we currently know it. In 2002, Gregory Paul and his collaborators published an explosive article that claimed exactly that. How is it possible that perhaps the most famous dinosaur of all time is what? Misunderstood? Not real? Nothing like that. No. Paul asserts that Tyrannosaurus rex isn't actually one species, but three lumped together. Let's investigate. Basically, in T-Rex specimens, there's considerable diversity in femoral robustness, aka femur strength and thickness. It was previously thought that this is the result of sexual dimorphism. Boys and girls are different sizes. But it could also be something like growth stages or individual variation. There are also differences in teeth, specifically in incisiforms. Some specimens have two of this tooth and others only have one. Paul and his team tried to use stratigraphic layers to determine change over time, just sort of looking at evolution. Dating is difficult, but the species was likely around for at least 2.5 million years, with some people proposing it as long as 3.6 million years. Now, triceratops had at least two, if not more, variations during the same time span, so multiple species is a possibility, and two concurrent species is also possible. Paul and his team also included other tyrannosaurids, such as the Albertosaurus, in the study as examples of variation across species. They were able to place 29 Tyrannosaurus specimens into the categorical stratigraphic positions of lower, middle, and upper based on field notes. That might seem imprecise, and it is, so I'll get into that later. What they found was that the 24 mature Tyrannosaurus specimens exhibit much greater variation in femoral length and circumference ratios than Allosaurus. In fact, when comparing the Tyrannosaurus dataset to the combined sample of all other Tyrannosaurids of all ages and taking allometry into account, the variation in femoral size in the Tyrannosaurus dataset is still greater by 14%. Also, more robust T-Rexes were found to outnumber the gracile ones more than 2 to 1. Interestingly, these smaller T-Rexes all appeared in the upper zone of the stratigraphic samples, while the robust ones were found throughout. This seems to suggest that the farther back in time we go, T-Rexes were overall more robust. Further, when we look at the teeth, interestingly, the 1 or 2 incisiforms that they have seems to correlate with the femoral robusticity, which also appears to change with time. I know that all sounds a bit confusing, but it's pretty important. They believe that they found 3 recognizable morphotypes, which are distinct species. Morphotype 1, which is found in the lowest layers and has the robust proportions in the 2 incisiforms, they call Imperator, the oldest evolutionary form. So if the T-Rex is the tyrant lizard king, this is the tyrant lizard emperor. Then morphotype 2, it's from the higher layers and has only 1 incisiform. This is the classic T-Rex we know and love. Morphotype 3 is from the higher layers, but it's smaller. It's the gracile forms, and it also only has 1 incisiform tooth. They called this morphotype the Tyrannosaurus Regina, aka the tyrant lizard queen. These multiple species could be the result of ecological diversification, with the T-Rex possibly being the descendant of the Tyrannosaurus Imperator, with just less teeth, and the unusually gracile Tyrannosaurus Regina evolving at the same time to hunt swifter and less heavily armed prey. Obviously, if this is true, it would be a huge discovery, but a team of 7 other paleontologists released a response article rebuking the claims. They had a lot of criticisms, and they make sense. Some of the features overlap between the species. Some skulls can't be identified. The proportional comparisons between Tyrannosaurus and other theropods are not comparable samples. The tooth data are problematic. That one is a direct quote. And also, the stratigraphic framework, just dividing the Hell Creek Formation into thirds without actual stratigraphic positioning of each specimen, isn't enough information. I mentioned this earlier, but dividing depth into thirds isn't really a great way of dating, which you don't really need to be a scientist to figure out. Anyways, they included that previous work did find variation in Tyrannosaurus rex specimens, but they determined that the variation can't really be separated into separate categories. One species of Tyrannosaurus where the variation among adults is best explained by growth and individual variation makes more sense than Paul's conclusion. It could also be sexual dimorphism, but scientists haven't really figured that out. Interestingly, the authors commented on something else, though. Many of the T-Rex fossils being analyzed by Paul are not publicly held, but privately owned, which is really bad for scientists since the owners can just say, no, you can't look at our bones, and then you can't replicate any of the studies. Anyway, there's 35 specimens and half are privately held. Also, Paul's not even a doctor. He doesn't have a degree in this. He just does it for fun. He does have some cool discoveries. He's a cool guy, but just don't forget that. All that said, rip to the Lizard King. And emperor and queen, maybe, but probably not. I'm history with Dino.